and gentlemen. You're welcome to today's broadcast. My name is Twitwi, and of course, thank you very much for taking time to join us. Today is June 12th, and of course, it's at 21 years already of uninterrupted uh, democratic journey. So much to talk about when it comes to in Africa and all of. Today on this program, we'll be talking crazy. We'll also align on the journey, what led to the popular June 12th. For those who don't know, also look at it's something that is working in Africa, or if we in fact need our style of government that will suit the thing we want to achieve as Africans. So um, I won't do this alone. You are Seun Kuti, that name because activists so much when it comes, fighting for democratic rights and the setting. And at the moment, as we speak, guys, in case you don't know, is the national leader of State Party of Nigeria. Yeah, Soweto is already on board, and of course, to join us. Good evening, and
Yes.
this broadcast.
Good evening, Twitwi. Good evening, Nigeria. Happy Democracy Day.
So yes, guys, it's Democracy Day. Maybe I choose the way to.
Well, feel and you have of the Socialist Party of Nigeria and about 71 other political parties. So to me, today actually is not an appropriate democracy day, given all of those background that I've already laid.
Oh, okay. I understand. I understand you, Soweto, and of course, I understand the implication that your party, the Socialist Party of Nigeria, got deregistered by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Yeah, definitely that is something to talk about, because we cannot talk about democracy without talking about the electoral process, election, and everything. And of course, that is one thing that will lead me to the next thing I want us to talk about June 12th, this day, June 12th. For some who do not know, it's actually a day, an election day in Nigeria. It was back then in 1993. And of course, today, so many of us, young people, those who know already, will agree that it's indeed the day that we can call Democracy Day in Nigeria, because we still recall that the election has been adjudged as the freest election that has ever taken place in Nigeria. So what do you make of June 12th as a day? Going back to what happened in June 1993,
Yeah.
the month of June 1993.
Yes, it's 27 years now or thereabout that we had the June 12th elections, which was
27 years.
criminally annulled by the Babangida military junta. And 27 years down the lane, obviously, there's a way that one feels, a sense of pride about the struggle that the Nigerian working people led, from that day onward, to ensure that the military were sent out, of government offices. Like many pundits have written and have said, it was a day when Nigerians came out openly, to cast their votes, not so much in support of the candidates, on the ballot, but as a sign of their tiredness with the continuous rule of the military. Because we need to always be skeptical about the general formulation that the election was the freest and fairest. I understand that given the history of terrible elections in Nigeria, there's a way that that election is seen to be much better than what we have had since then. But those who know the history of the Babangida military junta will know that there was very little that was free and fair in that election. In fact, preceding that election was one of the greatest rigmarole that Nigeria has ever experienced. A permanent postponement or transition rule by the Babangida military junta since the late 80s. Always postponing and postponing. And by the time the election was to be held in 1993, the government came out with a formula that only 2 political parties would be recognized out of the tens of parties that actually registered, for the election. So you had the SDP, which was said to be a party to the left, and the NRC, the party to the right. So those in the middle, they didn't have any political representation. But it's to show the readiness of Nigerians to kick out the military at that time that people didn't dwell too much on these attacks on their democratic right to choose. They went en masse on election day, to demonstrate that they wanted the military to go one way or the other. And that's why I said that that election really, was more or less like a symposium, or there's a word for it, like a poll, over whether the military should go or not. And the result of that election, given the tumultuous participation, was that the people were tired of the military. So that when the Babangida military junta came with the last formula of annulling the election, it was an enraged nation that trooped out to the streets, because as far as people were concerned, with the election having held on that day, the end of the military had come and a new democratic dispensation had started, only for the formula of annulment to be brought. And that was what enraged the people. And they led to a long-running struggle, by the students, by young people, and by the working class, going on strikes, embarking on street demonstrations, and notable figures like Gani Fawemi and co. played important roles in this struggle. We must also recall that it was in 1994 that Gani Fawemi, in defiance of the military's banning of political parties and political activity, launched the National Conscience Party in defiance of the military. And for this, he was incarcerated for a long period of time, for doing this. And our organization, the Democratic Socialist Movement, which formed the Socialist Party of Nigeria in alliance with other activists, was part and parcel of this anti-military struggle. We were together with Gani Fawemi, the NCP, in 1994, and all of the street battles, to legitimize the party and to begin to fight the military. And I'm recalling all of this for those who were born after June 12th, to begin to realize that there is very, very little that is happening today that has not happened before. Because we must also realize that an entire generation has come after June 12th, 1993. Who didn't know MK Abiola? Who didn't know that election? Who only have faint recollection, from the history book? Because if we are saying that what we practice today is democracy, and under this same so-called democracy, political parties are being deregistered for not winning a seat in an election that was adjudged to be massively rigged. 2019 general elections, massively rigged, and then you deregister a party that didn't win election in a rigged atmosphere. Are you punishing the party for not rigging? Because that is the understanding that I have of the logic of the INEC, in the registering the SP and others. What you are trying to say is that we were not as smart, or we were not as crooked, as the PDP and APC who rigged and bought vote and all of that. But there's a parallel in history that under the military, under Abacha regime, this same kind of formula, similar arguments were used to deregister political parties. So that 27 years after, we must now begin to take stock. What exactly is the nature of this democracy? As the DSM has always said, this is no democracy. This, in many ways, is civil rule. It is the rule of the rich against the poor. It is the rule of the bourgeoisie against the working class. And that is why you see that 27 years after, all of the same attacks on democratic rights that were the daily occurrence under the regime of Babangida, Abacha and co. are also what is happening today. For the past...
Okay, Taiwo, Hassan, Soweto, just
Yes.
pause for a minute now. Guys, we have Seun Kuti have just joined in now. Seun Kuti, you're welcome.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Ade, how you doing?
I'm good. I did try.
I understand. You not be only try, you dey try now. You know they do pass try yourself now.
I try, I do. Try only.
Baba, you
As
too
every
much.
Nigerian, we
Welcome.
dey try our best.
We dey try to survive. Yeah.
Comrade Soweto, you there, yeah?
Ameh, how are you? Correction.
Africa, I hear you.
Yes. Israel too.
ESM for life.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Okay, Seun, welcome now. Thank you for joining us. And in case you are wondering, you don't know the Seun Kuti, I think you should ask your ancestors if you don't know who Seun Kuti is.
Seun Kuti, area boy, causing problem around the place.
And he don't cause problem for a very long time, even as with a lot of moves that way they make, you know. So guys, Seun, thank you for joining us. Oh,
My pleasure.
I see your daughter.
Our youngest comrade is here.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. Very good. So, all right, guys. Don't forget, as well as I've said, we also have Andrew Ameh and also
Okay, I'm good.
Tope, who is they are both the conveners of youths on board. So now, make us start with you. Make her ask first. I want us to first start. What is democracy to you?
Democracy for me simply means representation. That's all. I mean, there are many different, how I put them, many different definitions, official definitions of democracy. But for me, democracy means we are represented. That everybody in society has some form of representation.
Oh, okay. Well, I like your definition, making it very simple for everyone to understand. And of course, we generally we agree that it's about representation. Today being June 12th, as we know, is a day that the federal government of Nigeria has declared the Democracy Day. Of course, as President Muhammadu Buhari did on June 6th in 2018, declaring the day or Democracy Day in Nigeria, away from what we were used to be May 29. So there are this.
Move closer.
Yeah, I know. Say now, so the internet they do everywhere, so we understand. So as we talk about democracy, which is okay, if I say your internet don't do better now, Seun.
Yeah, it don't do better.
Oh, okay. So, let's talk about, because the scope of our conversation is just to cover generally how democracy is being practiced in Africa, and if generally it is the best approach for us. But first, we must talk about June 12th. What is June 12th to you, Seun Kuti?
The 12th of June.
Yes.
The 12th of June. 12th of June, finish. 12th of June. What's happening about the 12th of June? We have some public holiday. You know, it is difficult. You know, for me, I have family members that gave blood, for June 12th. Right?
Yeah.
So for me, at the same time, I still understand the emptiness of June 12th. June 12th for me are the elitist version of their representation of democracy. June 12th means that the elites know what is best for Nigerians, and they fought for it without the knowledge of the Nigerian people. I feel, June 12th being what it is, June 12th not be day of liberation for African people. the day of our liberation has not yet come. The date that we as African people were liberated as Nigerian people, understand, and we get liberation, that date hasn't come. Our date is still not here. We still not fought for our date. But the day where we go liberate, they come, and the date will be cemented in history forever and ever.
Okay.
This is the day of the Nigerian elites. This is the day of the elite struggle for democracy against their own military friends. For this Nigeria where we do, so we have military elites, we have political elites, we have business elites. So June 12th, na the day where the political elites try to fight against the military elites. Finish. This is an interclass struggle. June 12th is a representation of interclass struggle, not Nigerian struggle for democracy. The Nigerian struggle for democracy is still ongoing, and we never really experience her. We never really get representation. So the date of our own liberation as Nigerian people is unknown, and it will be a glorious day. Oh, what a day that will be. And we shall have the date, but not be June 12th. I'm sorry to say.
Okay. I quite would agree to some extent with you just talk now. Yeah, because why I agree with you is that, luckily for some of us, we don't read some books and listen to some people, we be part of the history, we see some things live. We get to understand again that that's why I agree with what you talk. Nigeria elites fighting against another set of the elite, which is the military. Because Soweto, if we look one thing, which is one of the things I was discussing with a friend, that if we look at the number of people who were active in the June 12th struggle, the struggle towards democracy, so many of them are part of government now today. And
yes,
we don't see some of them, we be like, say, some of the things where they condemn then, neither they do to us now. Which is why I agree with Seun talk. So, Soweto, you see I'm from Seun angle.
Comrade Seun, why don't you use comrade? Me not be comrade.
You be comrade now. Everybody now comrade, but you don't need to write the comrade for your name. That make me just the comrade Soweto.
The comrade, they add joy to my life.
Those way they can make money. Okay.
They enjoy excellency.
Okay, I'll say Comrade Seun Kuti, the Pan-Africanist. Yeah. So, Soweto, you agree with what Seun talk?
Yes. Broadly, I agree to the extent that when you look at the June 12th struggle, there were different classes involved. The working class were involved. Then because it was a question of gaining democratic power, you had a section of the capitalist elite also involved. And when the history of June 12th is written today now, much accolade is given to the roles of some of these capitalist leaders, many of whom, when the heat was on, actually ran away from the country. Why the students, the youth, and the working masses had nowhere to go and had to face the military year in, year out. I was young then, but I agree with the struggle. And one of the familiar sites when I was growing up in Ife, in Osun State, were the street battles, between the student of the Obafemi University, and the Nigerian police. We used to call them the kill and go then. That was a very vicious. The Mopo. The Mopo. They were called kill and go. And that will tell you the kind of license they had to kill. So one of the familiar sites in Ife then, were the street battles between the student, and the police and the kill and go. And when I later gained admission to the university, I met some of the survivors of that struggle. Some of them had lost limbs. Some I met relatives of those who had died. So that for many Nigerians who went through that struggle, it wasn't. It's not in the way that a Tinubu or a Fayemi will talk about that history today, gleefully and glibly, for those who lost limbs, for those who lost a whole lot, and for Nigerians who suffered incarceration, there's a whole lot of reasons why they will be angry today that all of those things they shed their blood for has not been accomplished. Because when I started this discussion, I was telling you that I'm angry because today is a misnamed day. Even though I agree that today it also can be seen historically as the day that Nigerians try to kick out the military through their votes. But celebrating the day, under a government that has done almost far worse than Abacha or Babangida did. I mean, because today now you have a journalist in detention just because they wrote something against the Minister of Communications. Like I also said, you have a political party, information rather, you have a political party like the SPN and about 70 others deregistered, not because they did anything wrong, but because they did not win an election that was adjudged, by many international observers as, being
even local
rigged.
observers are aware.
And local observers. So what you are punishing us for, therefore, is that we were not smart enough to rig like the crooks in the APC and the PDP. So in many ways, it's like a society has turned a circle. And that's why you can understand the kind of anger that Comrade Seun is expressing when he says that does not recognize the day. But for me, I think that what we need to say is that June 12th was the day that the Nigerian working people, the young people, tried to throw away the military. We must pay respect to those who kept on the struggle for years after, when the likes of Tinubu, Fayemi, and co ran out of the country. And we must also learn the lesson. Yes.
It is important that we do not mistake my own interpretation of the official June 12th meaning to this. If the comrade had asked me, "Oh, what do you think about the June 12th struggle?" I'll have gone into more detail about the different classes.
No, sure, yeah, I understand.
He asked me about the date. I will never for once trivialize, the experiences of many of the young African people, young professionals, even in those days. I, being one of them, believing in I was 10. You understand? And I was helping my uncle carry Uncle Bekoras, carry flyers from his office in Antony. I didn't know what was in my school bag. I didn't know if it was bomb. I didn't know what it was, but they were Nadeco,
Yeah.
And they were fighting, and they were. So for me, I was a part of that, and I will never trivialize what all of that stood for.
Yeah.
The amount of resilience it instilled in young people like us, that such men were able to stand up in the front of tyranny without regard for their life or their limbs, So I will never for once trivialize that. But what I would say is that the mainstream, because many young people only know the mainstream idea of what June 12 was, the sacrifices that went underground are not spoken about. So what I was speaking, in terms of what I'm saying, is directed mainly at the mainstream struggle of what this so-called June 12 is about. I'm also coming to Soweto, you can continue. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
In no way trivialize or say I do not recognize the struggles that we young African people have always answered the call. Irrespective of what anybody says, and what we need to learn as young African people now is that many of these people ahead of us do not have the interest of the majority at heart. So maybe we need to stop listening to their call and start making our own calls.
Yeah.
But what I will say about the young people in Nigeria from the 1940s that I'm also writing, because I'm writing a book now, understanding the history of Lagos from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. What I've understood about the young people in this place is that we've always answered the call for liberation. We've always put ourselves, our lives, our limbs on the line, following what our elders have said is the path to liberation, only for them to get there and betray the majority of us. So I think this is what is highly and most important that we understand. I will never indict the Nigerian youth for their sacrifices in any of the struggle because they have always answered the call. My indictment is strictly on the business and political elites and the so-called elders that we have in this society for betraying the call that we answered that they made at every point in time and in every generation. In only for them to turn it to a materialistic, selfish endeavor, you know. So, Soweto, you can continue. I just want to make that.
Okay. Soweto, even before you continue, so I was going to say when I started, I just wanted us to start from defining what the June 12th, our acceptance of the date being a democracy day.
We don't accept because they've sold it out. Me, I don't accept.
Thank you very much. So, but then it is also very important that when we talk about a day like this and the struggle towards democracy, we cannot do this without talking about identifying and recognizing the so much sacrifice that was involved before we have this democracy we have today. And it's very important too for us to make it clear to people that most of those who fought so hard for this democracy are not even mentioned when we are talking about the democracy. Their name doesn't come up most of the time.
At all.
Yeah.
Their names don't even come up.
But there's a reason for that.
But
from my own point of
view,
view,
even for our independence in this country, many of the people that actually created the chaos, the avenue for it to be possible are nameless, faceless, and deliberately not remembered by those that are there, so that the significance of their struggle is not recognized by the new generation. To know that is what we must continue to do for us to continue to achieve what we want to achieve. It is deliberate for them that they don't have any memorial sites for these names.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I mean, that's the point I wanted to make.
Site, the About Women's Riot deserve the memorial site. Or the more than 50 both anti-colonial and anti-military, anti-oppressive student protests, massive protests that have happened in this country that is not recognized by any monument. The lives and limbs lost, no justice, no mention, completely swept under the carpet. I mean, so we can go on and on about that, you know. But for me, what I want us to do, at least to know for sure, is what is necessary and what we should hold dear, you know, and what we should research. I mean, this is what is important for me. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Commission is very correct. If I could just add this. I mean, for historical, all over the world, actually, when you have the ruling elite jumping on an historical emblem of people's struggle, like the June 12th, like the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, you always see a situation where they want to control how that history is written. The narrative, because they are also afraid that if the real lesson, the real significance of the struggles are known by a new generation, then it could also inspire people, you know, to want to take that road. I mean, for a Buhari regime that I said has committed almost all of the same crimes that was committed under the military, it served under the most brutal of the dictators, so that it was part of all of the attacks on the right of Nigerians in the 90s. So for the same person to then preside over a regime that is bestowing on June 12th its so-called rightful place in history, it's a joke taken too far. And they don't want the significance to be known, because they know that young people need reference point today, working people need reference point today, because people want to struggle. And they need those reference points in their history to inspire them to fight. So they want to neuter this history, and it's a responsibility to bastardize it, exactly.
Yeah, so that will lead me to the next thing where I want to ask, because intentionally I've had to say, okay, if you will have time, we have to have this conversation today, because you've always been part of movements, creating different movements towards the liberation of Africans, you know, in particular, because that is where we have our own problem. No, the story is the same from Nigeria to Burkina Faso to Chad to South Sudan to everywhere, all across, apart from some other leaders, few leaders in Africa who are trying to do things differently. So now, talking about the struggle that led to what pushed Babangida to agree to fixing an election, you know, it's before Babangida, the struggle has been on for our independence, and then for us to even establish a democratic government. And then we are now seeing a situation where some of those who were part of that struggle, not really the main front or leaders of the struggle at each given time, they are now in position, and we are still suffering the same things we complained about. They complained about that they protested against and everything. So if you're talking about leading a movement now that is going to make us achieve the Nigeria of our dream, the Africa of our dream, where everything becomes normal, how do we achieve that, knowing fully well that people are now discouraged because they've seen those who lead a struggle, or sometimes who are part of struggles, go from behind to become part of the problem that we'll be facing? So how do we really communicate that to young people, carry them along, so that everyone will be part of the new struggle that is going to liberate us from this political system that we have?
Well, what I always say as to my members in Nigeria Resistance, you know, is that Nigeria Resistance, first of all, is not an organization that wants to keep you under it. All we want to do in Nigeria Resistance is help you raise your consciousness, and we are willing to release you to the world as long as your consciousness is raised. And that is the solution. Nigerians need to stop looking for heroes. They need to stop looking for the man that is going to solve all their problems, and understand that we can solve our problems ourselves. And the way we can solve our problem is to raise our consciousness. If you raise your world cannot be greater than your consciousness. I say this all the time. If you take 100 of my interview, you probably hear this line 80 times. Your world cannot be greater than your consciousness. If you want to raise your world, you have to raise your consciousness. Ergo, your nation cannot be greater than your consciousness. You want to raise your nation, you have to raise your consciousness. It's not about looking out for Seun, Fela, Gani, Femi Falana, or any of these men that can come and speak. You yourselves have the power within you. We need organizations that can help Nigerian people raise their consciousness enough to know the kind of power that they have within themselves as African people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, I've been involved in the struggle with many people. I've been under many principles. And if I was going to follow the same logic, I have always understood that my consciousness is what is necessary. Not that I'll be able to create my own things out of the positions that I've been able to find myself for the betterment of the from our worship, raising people up to level of idols and then worshiping them, even though what they are doing is negative. Okay, so for me, maybe Tinubu is betrayed the movement, doesn't matter. That Buhari does not represent the movement and is now put as the face of the movement, doesn't matter, because my consciousness dismantles. You understand? My consciousness dismantles their position, and I want to share that consciousness with as many Nigerians as possible. Because as soon as Nigerians, as Frantz Fanon said, this is also important. Frantz Fanon said, the day you stop being the victim of your oppressor and becoming the day Frantz Fanon said, the day you decide to become the enemy of your oppressor is the day you stop being his victim, right? So, and many Nigerians also are willing to choose this victim mentality, and they don't want to become the enemy of the oppressor, because in our society, the oppressor is the gatekeeper. The oppressor is the gatekeeper to success, to materialistic wealth. to materialistic comfort. You understand? So many of them, want these things. So they don't want to offend the gatekeepers. But also, our consciousness is what can help us as motherland people be strong enough to offend these gatekeepers, to turn our backs on these gatekeepers, to become the enemies of these gatekeepers, so that we stop being their victim. And I believe that is the solution. It's not about how do I put it? Where am I? It's not about us being disillusioned because some selfish few or some greedy few are able to bastardize what we stand for. But it's our own deliberate action, our own deliberate movement to counter these things. It is not easy, yes, because the resources of those that are willing to sabotage Africa are unlimited. Right? So yes, yeah. It might look like a daunting task. But if your consciousness is at that level to understand what the situation is and to understand that the ability to change is within you, then those resources, the resources that our enemies have, that our oppressors have, become redundant, because those resources will not be able to influence us that are resisting, us that are from the vanguard of the resistance. Because it's only when there's resistance that there can be revolution.
Yeah. Wow. Well put, honestly. But one of the concerns, Comrade Soweto, just as you have said now, building the consciousness. How do we really communicate this message to ensure that people become really conscious and become aware of some of these things happening around us, and we take ourselves, lift ourselves above that level of self-pity? Because what I see most of the time is that we have young people, we have adults who have resigned to fate to say there is nothing we can do about it. If you talked about how do we make Nigeria better, how do we make life better in Africa, they usually will come out, what can you do about it? If you protest, they will kill you and all of the rest. So how do we create that awareness, that consciousness? And then again, on the revolution Seun mentioned, what form of revolution are we talking about?
Thank you very much. I'll start with the last question, because I think it opens the way to answering all other questions. Clearly, 27 years after, for the generation that participated in the anti-military struggle, there's a sense of disappointment that all of their struggles have come to waste. And for the younger generation, our starting point must be to ask ourselves, what was done wrong? What mistakes were committed? Because you have asked the question, what form of revolution? There are all kinds of revolutions. But for Africa and for the world itself, we need a break from capitalism. That really is the fundamental root of the entirety of the problems that we face across the world, including Nigeria. Nigeria is an enormously endowed country, and yet it parades some of the worst statistics in terms of poverty, in terms of maternal death, in terms of diseases and all of that. The unemployment in Nigeria is at 23.1% at the moment, but it's being projected to go as high as 45% by the end of the year. That's going to mean another 20 to 39 million people out there without nothing to do.
Vice President said we're going to lose 33 million jobs this year.
So it's an endless horror that we face in the country on the basis of capitalism. So what kind of revolution can begin to take us out of that catastrophe? For me, I think it's a socialist revolution. A revolution led by the working class, leading all other oppressed people to begin to fight for a change of the system. And because we then why are a lot of people poor? If we can have a new arrangement whereby the wealth of Nigeria is democratically run and managed by the working class, then it can be possible to begin to provide a way out for the problems that we face in this country. And that was the kind of question that were not properly answered in the anti-military struggle. You must remember one thing, that despite the effort of the working people who lost limbs, who lost lives in the struggle, in 1999, when the transition was to happen, the working people did not have a political party of their own. The people had to go to vote for either the PDP or the Alliance for Democracy, parties that represent the same interests that have been ruling us since 1960. We must change that kind of narrative. And that is why in the Socialist Party of Nigeria, we're trying to insist on the right of our party to exist. Because ultimately, if we go to the 2023 elections and people have to vote for either the PDP or the APC, then we would have lost everything. So for me, I think that one of the important lessons that must be learned by the new generation of activists is the need for a socialist ideology, is the need to build an organization, is the need to build a political party, a mass workers political party, and with socialist programs. And with that, we can build a movement that can lead to a socialist revolution, as Comrade Seun Kuti has called for.
Wow, interesting. Honestly, I know on this discourse about capitalism, and socialism and everything, we know that it's a very wide conversation for another day. But do you share his thoughts about moving away from capitalism to a socialist system?
The question I will ask you, Comrade Twitwi, is that, is your grandfather homeless?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, that's all. That's the only question. That's the only question I asked.
I know the trick when you use it.
You see, before the advent of capitalism in Africa, in our generation at least, of us 40 years and under, none of us grandfather is homeless.
Yeah.
Bad as it is, house day for village. So how come? How come we had a system that recognized the need for every man to be housed, to have a job, to be fed? And even today that they say Africans are criminals, everybody giving us bad name, Nigerians are 419, this, that. I said this is the same Africa where we used to have unmanned markets.
Yeah, yes.
Do you know the amount of technology white men have to create to have a market that is unmanned? You know the amount of technology they have it now in Europe. You go, machine is collecting your money and taking the goods, but they still have security at the door that will beep if you don't pay that thing. But we had sorted that out 500 years ago. How? That market will be full of goods, and every African participating in that market economy will make sure that they pay what is there, even though the owner of the market is not there to ask for his remuneration.
Yeah.
So how come we are criminals today? How come we're homeless today? Unlike our grandfathers. A young African child walking on the street 100 years ago in Africa will tell you the name of every plant, what it does, the use, the value, the medicine, if it's a poison, if it can grow, how to till the land. Who knows that today? Are we educated? Okay, we're educated, right? So we're educated. The amount of doctors that are coming out of our university, is the corresponding with our healthcare? The amount of lawyers coming out of our university, Is it corresponding with our justice system? The amount of teachers coming out of our universities, is it corresponding with our educational system? The amount of bankers we are graduating, business administrators that we are graduating, is it corresponding with our business and banking system? So can we say we are truly more educated than we were 100 years ago? Can we truly say that? So what do we mean by socialist revolution? No, we are not asking for a revolution. We are asking for resistance to capitalism. It is not the poor, the working class that will start a revolution in this country. It is when we are conscious enough to start resisting the antics of the capitalist class that they will start the violence. And it is their violence against our resistance to their oppression that will lead to a revolution. Nobody should ever put the blame of revolution on the common man or the poor people of this country. Because all we will do when we get wise is that we are going to resist them. We are going to resist the capitalist class because we will see that everything that they do is against our humanity. And instead of them to accept the fact, like the fact that I've just pointed out to you now, that all the things they do, that they are doing, is not actually developing us or progressing us. Yes, it is modernizing us, but it is destroying us at the same time. Modernity and development is not the same thing. So when we rise up really consciously to raise our world and we begin to resist their nonsense, instead of them to accept their flaw, because it is in them to be inhumane, because you have to be inhumane to dehumanize somebody else. You understand? You have to be animalistic.
Oh,
you understand? To treat somebody.
Yeah, I understand you, show. I was just going to introduce Ameh and Tope Orilua, who they are the conveyors of youths on board. Thank you guys for joining us.
So
yeah, it was quite. Show, you can go on. You can continue.
It is their violence. It is their violent response to our resistance of their oppression that will lead to a revolution. It is not the people that would rise up one day and start revolting. No. It's the elite of our country are willing to be humane. There will be no revolution in Nigeria. Nigeria will change peacefully so that African people can reassess and then reaccess our originality, so that we are no longer, so the way our grandfathers were not homeless will not be home. The way our youth were not criminals, which will also now become non-criminal, will become more educated and things like that. So for me, revolution is not really the request of the common man. All we are going to demand for is a better country. All we are going to do is resist a terrible country. And it is the answer of that terrible country to us that will determine if there's revolution or not.
Honestly, I must say I agree completely with what you said about the education. Because, citing our history and what we used to be before the modernization as we see at the moment. Because I was having a conversation with someone the other day. I said that, how is it that everything produced out of Africa does not fix the price for it? For example, talk about our cash crops or crude oil or anything. We don't get to fix the price for it. It is the outside world, the West, that tells us what the value, what the cost is. We don't even know how to value anything anymore when it comes to export or whatever it is. And there is really no way if we want to talk about the global economy, that we can really get that done. Andrew and Tope Tope, before you joined us, we're talking about Seun and Soweto. We're talking about raising the consciousness, for us to get to understand that there is this need for us to place demand. It is not enough for us to sit down as individual and say, oh, and wait for somebody to become the Messiah, as we see every day. But if we have that consciousness, we are aware about the antics, the manipulations, and everything going around us, that way we can really have the revolution we need, which is what you met us talking about. And it just explained how that revolution is going to happen. You guys are into your main concern as youth on board is getting youth together to at least be part of the political process to effect change. So what do you make of what Seun has said about having this revolution and the approach? Remember, he mentioned specifically that it is not we, the people or the masses, that are going to call for the revolution, but the continuous change, the continuous demand for change, calling for example, we are calling for political reform in the country. And so how do you really think, what do you make of what he said about the revolution, and what are you guys doing as youths on board?
It's a nice one again. Show, it's a pleasure to be with you. Soweto, nice one.
Okay.
The thing is, it's like you said, is a calling and a yearning of almost every Nigerian, And most times when you look at revolution, they are not premeditated. They just occur, because the majority of the people will begin to advocate for same thing and same bearing. And as youth, what we are coming together to do is to raise the awareness. I like the choice of words, that Seun has been using, raising consciousness of the people. But our emphasis are on the youth, the energy, the momentum, everything they gather, they need to channel it properly, for addressing the menace our country has been going through. Do you understand? Youth on board is actually putting youth together, that have a common voice and a common understanding that it's their time to demand for the right thing to be done. And in the political space of Nigeria, we need to be involved in policies and decisions that affect our future and our present. I mean, how old were these people when they became leaders of this country? Until now, we are still told that we are leaders of tomorrow. Twitwi, when am I going to be a leader or be part of the process of my country if I am still promised tomorrow? Do you understand? We are not just concerned about the age. If the age and the people there are doing what is progressive, what is enhancing, what is able to match and compete with our equals in other developed countries. But if we are where we are today, where we have leadership and decisions and policies that does not in any way, in relationship or tally in a standard world, then we have a voice to raise. And I don't know if let me not say revolution now, tomorrow you won't find me again. But I am greatly
Andrew, you can free to use the word revolution. It's a movement and it's going to happen. Yes.
I am 100% in support of that raising consciousness of the average Nigerian. It's not time to give up. Take it or leave it. These people are never going to sit down when they say they are tired of using us. They will never really give to us what is needed and demanded of us to have a better country and the country we all be proud of.
Okay, Tope Tope, you want to add something?
Like you said, and I think Seun mentioned earlier on, it's all about raising. It's all about raising. Sorry, just hold on. It's all about raising awareness and consciousness of the youths and all of us in Nigeria in general. Because to be honest,
I think we have a break connection or something. So let me just quickly.
I think we've matured to a point in Nigeria where we can. Sorry.
Okay, go on. We can hear you, Tope.
Yeah. So we've matured and we've come to a point in our country where and that's where Youth on Board comes in, where we are looking at a situation where we can come together as youths, gather ourselves, and we should be able to say, okay, these are the...
Okay, so Soweto, I was going to come to you. Temitope, I don't know. We understand. Now the internet did that. It did happen. Now our country we still there. when people they find 5G, we still they struggle with 2G. Soweto, I was going to ask you that because with everything we've said about consciousness, raising, because the consciousness is about the mind. And I was reading something written by a sociologist about human behavior, that human behavior is not, that is our approach to events really now from that angle is largely due to environmental influence, what community, the society produce. So over time, we know that the mind is very plain. Nobody is born to do evil or to become a thief. The society creates a thief in every one of us. And our consciousness, our awareness, our concern for humanity is one of the reasons we won't engage in some of these acts. So I was going to say, we are still young, we'll get old, the generations that will come, how do we ensure that we won't continue in this cycle where we have a few good people pushing for a movement, and at the time things can become stabilized, and then again it's become destabilized again. So how do we really implant in young people the understanding of the consciousness, and they won't deviate from it?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that any society that is suffering oppression, that is suffering economic inequality, that kind of society would also suffer a moral crisis. What that means is that the young people, the working people, the victims of all of this oppression would find it hard to maintain the straight line. Because oftentimes the bare needs of survivor can actually impact on them so severely that it becomes so difficult to do what is required. And that is why you have seen, even in countries and societies where you have had very high consciousness and very huge movement for change, after a while, when those movements does not lead to an ultimate change of society, then that consciousness regresses. People who are fighting hard at the barricades, they go back. And for a period, you could have people saying that nothing can change, only for another shock to happen again, and then they want to come back again. So that the point the background I'm trying to lay is that until we are able to transform society, we are going to continue to experience this constant flux in people's consciousness. For those who lived through the anti-military struggle, we are going to remember that the anti-military struggle lasted for years. But it was not every day or every month that the masses were on the street. There were periods, there were long periods, several months, that nothing happens. That there were certain days that a whole lot of actions and activities takes place. So that for me, I think that what we therefore need to do is to have an organization that is constantly among the people, helping to provide for them a program of struggle at a period when they are ready to struggle, then the period when there's some level of disappointment, some level of regression in people's consciousness. Such organizations must exist with a view to act as the moral platform of the people, which maintains the resistance in the best way it can, in order that when the people are ready to come back to fight again, they have a platform to come back to. And I think that is very vital, because in every struggle, people, the working people, the youth always need a reference point. And that is why we must give accolades to the activists, whether young or old, who are continuing to remain at the barricades since the June 12th struggle. Because when we started this conversation, Twitwi was the first to refer to those who had regressed, who had joined the government in power and are committing exactly the same crimes that the military were committing. That is the reference point. But the good thing is that we also have those, and one very important example is Gani Fawehinmi. Another important example is Fela Anikulapo Kuti, whose annual celebration today attracts hundreds of thousands, if not millions of young people, including those who never met Fela, including those who do not listen to Fela's music all the time. But they recognize that Fela stood for something while he was alive, and what he stood for continues to remain relevant today. That annual celebration and the huge numbers of young people it gathers is a clear barometer of the fact that young people still recognize the need for struggle. And I think that that's a duty that Fela, Gani, and co. have done for this generation. It is therefore our responsibility as young people, including Seun, to build on that history, to build on that legacy, by actually building a movement on the ground that can turn these aspirations into practical struggles to begin to change society. So that, yes, Seun has listed a number of things that should be done. Regular ideological education using the mass media. What we are doing today is an aspect of it. But also very important is that we must utilize every opportunity, every attack on different layers of the working people, the young people. To demonstrate that sense of resistance. Today, we have had, over the past few days, killings by bandits of Nigerian people in the north of the country. In Lagos State today, we have a scandal over the enormous stealing of public resources by the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly. And they're trying to do everything as if it's a family affair. And with the history of the Lagos State APC, can be sure that very soon nothing will be heard of it. Those are the kind of issues that you bring us to the streets. Those are the kind of issues that should make us shut Lagos State House of Assembly. Those are the kind of issues that we should use, that we have to use to keep up the spirit of resistance. And these are the kind of activities that will turn, that will act like small streams that will turn into a river later, the river of revolution. So while I agree with Seun that nobody prepares for revolution, revolution is always a product of a time and a stage when people can no more live as they used to live before. But at the same time, that day will not come without the little activity, including what we are doing today. So I want to commend all of us, including Twitwi, who have provided this platform, because we never can know just how much impact we're having today on people's consciousness. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Wow, very interesting, Soweto. Seun, I know say you get so much to talk already. But you, okay, go on, because I've been want to ask you a question. You know, as
I agree with
okay, go on, Seun.
Completely. I agree with Soweto completely. I feel as one of the problems we get from Nigeria also is that a lot of professionals, young professionals like me, like you know, we get the opportunity to advance and elevate themselves to some certain level of comfort within this oppressive system, refuse to sacrifice for the new generation the way sacrifices were made for us. You understand? Many people in our generation, now this is our generation, we start this lie of I'm self-made, I'm a self-made man. You know, this is 80s, late 70s, early 80s propaganda by black bourgeoisie, petty bourgeoisie. Oh, so that people believe that, you know, we are the ones actually working hard for all the things, that forgetting that in this system, nothing was ever handed to black people. That everything that we are under this capitalist system as black people was as a result of struggle. You understand? For us to be doctors, somebody had to die, pay the price. For us to be lawyer, for us to enter the bus, for us to go to school, for us to do anything in this system of capitalism as black, as African people, we have to pay the blood price. And we today do not want to pay that price, you know, forward for the young people. So young professionals, we need to start aligning more with the people. You know, Del Jones, you know, one time he was asked the question, oh, why are young people burning down black communities when they protest? test. The Jones just answered them. He just answered straight. Said, well, when the people are coming, the people are righteous. So it is either you get behind them or you get out of their way.
Yes, out of their way, true.
Now, may I will even go further to let people know that if a mob rises in Nigeria today to take what is theirs, to take their destiny, many Nigerian professionals will want to complain. Oh, we are not in government. Why are these people attacking us? They are attacking you because you never went on strike one day because their children were dying.
Yeah.
They are attacking you professionals because you never went on strike one day because of the predatory practices of the banks you work in on their life. You never went on strike one day because their children could not go to school. You never went on strike one day because their children couldn't eat, because they also are dying of hunger. So when people are putting all these enormous pressures on Nigerian youth, on how Nigerian youth are lazy and don't want to change anything, I say youth are only a reflection of society. Youth are not the solution. The youth have never been, I've never seen a country that the youth built. The youth are nothing but a reflection of society, because the youth look up to the elders, look up to the grown-ups of society to decide what they are doing. You understand? And we as the professionals are the only class of Nigerians indicted in all levels by our complacence in this oppressive system. I'm not saying it come easy. Yeah, I'm not saying it came easy. From 1960 or late 50s, to be precise, from the first Isaac Boro revolution in Niger Delta, you know, maybe even earlier, you know, going to what's his name, the founder of the Nigerian Labour Congress. I forgot his name, escapes my mind right now. You know, up on, you know, the struggles that we've gone through.
Paimodu.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's it. So there's always been a constant battle that the Nigerian oppressive class, the Lagos slave trading families, the Lagos created slave trade city of Lagos. Because we have to remember that this city is empowered by the blood and the dehumanization of African people in this region. Whatever we call it, Lagos is the center of excellence. Yes, excellence, slave trade. So they fought against us from the late 50s until the late 70s to destroy and kill off and eliminate the progressive and intellectual and revolutionary youth and professionals really of this region. My father was a victim of such attack. My grandmother was thrown out of the window. She was a warrior. She was someone that was at the vanguard of the professional resistance against oppression in Africa. So these kind of professionals and their ideology was systematically destroyed, wiped out, from the universities to the banks to the educational institutions to the religious institutions. It was a concerted effort that we do not remember because we are not historical here. So now that it is only their own kind of professionals in charge, we find these professional accomplices pointing fingers at the Nigerian youth. The youth have no money, they have no jobs, they have no security. How can youth fight for the emancipation of any country? What would they leverage? It is the duty of young professionals And these young professionals, abandoned, betrayed, are willing to align constantly with the oppressive class, the elite of Nigeria, against the young people of this country. And that is the real problem of Nigeria, whether if we want to face the fact. It is the willingness of our professional class to align with the oppressor.
Phil, in fact, you see, let me add something to what you just said quickly now. If we all remember what happened in Lagos during the lockdown, when the lockdown was introduced I had this conversation with some colleagues, and when I told them that we should not ask government to call for a lockdown, except if the government is ready to provide for the people. Because the population of Nigerians, especially in Lagos, that depends on daily income is so much. Now, we saw what happened when some young people became hungry and they start visiting places. Though it is one thing for us to condemn criminality, stealing and all of the rest. But each time I always want to look at it from this angle. What is the reason? Why is that person taking up crime?
What do you mean? Who condemns crime in Nigeria? Who condemns crime?
Except if it's
only condemn crime by the poor, because rich people commit crime in this country every day, and everybody praise them. Nobody should tell me that Nigerians are against crime. Rich, in fact, Instagram gives criminals. They just arrested a criminal yesterday for us, and the Instagram verification. Me, Seun Kuti, I don't have Instagram verification on my page. Go and check my page. Instagram is used to verify me, but they verify Hush Puppy who has been arrested by authorities for criminality. So what are we saying? Is it only Nigerians? It is the world, it is global. These elites are criminals, and they elevate only professionals that are willing to help them perpetuate their criminality. And until we, the people, decide, because when I look at Nigeria, we are willing to assist and help and elevate these people that assist our oppressors. Even in the entertainment industry, it's people that are praising Dangote that are making the most money. They'll say, Seun Kuti's music is not sweet. I say, because your oppressor has told you it's not sweet, Abi. Have you heard what you say?
Andrew, let's come to you now. I went because you know what I was going to say then. It became very clear, and where I live, they came together and said that they have to involve the police, empower people. Then I asked our community one question and said, if we are asking that the police should come, we should empower guards with gun. Who will say make them come kill? Now the hungry people with our community here, where they find food, we say make them come kill. Why we not contribute money and share food, give the hungry people, and see if we not go they sleep without any concern? And that is really some of the things we have to pay attention to. We are very quick to kill the poor and praise the rich criminal or the elite, as we call it. So, Andrew, because why we are having this conversation is, I know we have to bring it to a close very soon. We've passed the 1 hour mark now. Excuse me. I'll be human being. I must cough too. So, I'm human being. You know me pick up. So, Andrew, in contribution to this discussion, how you really think, say, apart from the approach, raising the consciousness and everything, we've seen a situation where we first talked about political participation, where it is very difficult to carry young people along politically. We have those who would consider very smart, not political. They are not politically active. I'm not talking about running for election now, because when they talk about not too young to run and everything, I say, well, it's a very good idea, but it's not always about running for election.
No, very
It's
true.
about the activities that happen even after election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Accountability. So,
Ideology nko.
Ideology.
yes,
Very
ideology now.
That's good.
very true.
You know,
Twitwi, first, I don't know. Instead of speaking, I've been learning, and and listening to, other sides of how it works. But this is it. I want to start by this definition. Uh, Laziness, in my new definition of laziness, is getting tired even before you walk. You know, they use, like you're trying to give an example of what is happening, how they were scrambling and fighting for food. Our youth have been rendered vulnerable by a lot of things that are working against us. So it is sometimes uh, alarming, and I feel touched when some of them get involved in petty crimes and they face the maximum penalty. I am not supporting crime, but we refuse to dig to the bottom of the problem, that these guys have been pushed to the wall and hence has no means of livelihood or sustainability. Nevertheless, when we talk about youth participation or youth demanding their space and their time has come to actually demand and have a say in what should be done, we are saying that if they keep sitting in that corner of mere survivor, picking fruit from the street, they will remain at that level, because Twitwi, this is how it works. If an average Nigerian youth is hungry, he is vulnerable. Hence, he will be given 10,000 naira to go and steal ballot box. Hence, he will be given a gun to go and shoot his own friends and brethren, in order to support or enhance some of these, guys that are manipulating our system to win their elections. We are saying it is time for us to come together. First of all, let's address where and how we got to where we are vulnerable. Education, vocational skill. So when we talk about youth on board, we're not just talking about politics. We mention politics because it's about where a lot is decided. And obviously, we are not invited to have a seat on that table. But we are not going to wait, because nobody is going to give us a free meal ticket. We have seen and waited for years, and we have come to this conclusion that we will never be called to have a seat except we are called to be used. Now, you look at the elections that have gone in few years past down to the last election, and you see the percentage of registered voters and the percentage of the accredited voters and eventually the percentage of voters. What is different? We are talking about a country of over 200 million people, and you're having a total vote of less than 5 million or 6 million, as the case may be. Does that in actual sense say that the current government is the voice of the majority of the people of Nigeria? Do those percentages actually represent the voice of the people? Do you understand? And yes, I've had people come to my page, people call me and talk to me that, look, they want to vote, but they were not allowed to vote. Who did not allow you to vote? Youths were used against you as well. I don't know, Twitwi, if you have ever seen Tinubu with a gun to shoot. I've not seen him. I don't know if you haven't gone to shoot. I
have some videos of him in Civil War shooting.
I'm not saying the correct dispensation. You know, so they use for that. You know, when you are talking about the youth, you know, coming to the street to make it unsafe. And this is the problem. These guys have so much lockdown that they don't even know who is their actual enemy. So the war now is not even between the low level and the upper level. The war is between the low level and the middle class. I tell you now, if you drive to some suburb area of this country, you know, they automatically see you as an enemy. But when these politicians come, they'll be celebrated. You know why? They're going to come with 1,000, 10,000, you know, notes to throw here and there, and they'll be celebrated. So this consciousness needs to be emphasized. That look, you need to identify who has put you in this problem, who has locked you down with this chain. It is not the average guy walking on the street. It is the policy maker, decision maker at the helms of affairs that have refused to create a platform for you to excel.
But Andrew, can I just say something real quick here? Just to add what you are saying, that Nigerian people, I don't want us to now think that our people are stupid or our people don't know what they are doing. Yeah. As I said, the reason why the Nigerian youth sees you more as his enemy than the oppressor is because the institutions of influence have led him to believe that you are his problem. So that's why I always say, when you go to church, what are the institutions of influence in Nigeria? The institutions of influence is media, education, and religion. When you watch movies on TV, who are your enemies that is not making you progress? Your friend, your brother, your cousin, your mother, your father, your best friend, your wife, your husband, your sister, your brother. Who are your saviors? Why Jesus or a big man coming to give you a job? Or why Jesus directing a big man to give you a job? A combination of both. You understand? Or you listen to music. When you listen to music, all your friends are your enemies. Oh, don't trust your friends. Oh, they want your downfall. They just work with you because you have. So all this message, even from our schools, the way schools operate, putting children in competition with one another. You understand? All these fosters a spirit that kills solidarity. And it's our elite that are the helm of all these institutions, directing them, sponsoring them. We live in a Nigeria where the elite spend more on entertainment than they do on education.
True. True.
So this message that is, because they don't need education more, just education to create competition. The only thing Nigerian education is about is to create competition between you and the next person sitting next to you. If that one no book, you be Olodo, they start the competition from there. Don't copy, don't do this, don't work together. That's where that one start. That's why they don't give money to those ones. Because from primary school, what they need them for is already done. Then they pump the money into the religion and the entertainment, media and religion, where we are told that we are our own worst enemies. So I always say to people, like, even during this lockdown, that Nigerian middle class started forming food services on their street to give poor people food. A man that is waiting to you at the point of death before he decides to render help, is that really a friend? When your problem was just headache, you went to him, he didn't answer. The headache enter your ear. You start having ear problem. You went to him, he didn't answer. Throat problem. The thing can't block you. You didn't answer until your heart was now stopping you on the floor, foaming from the mouth. You know, say, oh, my neighbor is dying. My neighbor, everybody give him help. Is that somebody that loves you? Or somebody that doesn't want stress of dead body on their street?
Yeah.
So we have to really go into the concrete. So for me, there's so much attack. On the psyche of the Nigerian people. That we professionals can no longer just, because the only way the Nigerian people have any hope against this elite is if we professional class pull together our resources to liberate our brothers and sisters. We cannot wait for them to liberate. themselves. They don't have the space. They don't have the so. That's why I have Nigeria resistance, and I believe that every young professional that can have some extra resources instead of using that one to drink champagne. Or buy some expensive stuff. Yeah, I'm not saying don't live a good life. Buy your car, buy the things you need, but don't every week go to club. That every week go to club money. Every week buy new cloth money, sending it to the West, use it to organize your community. Even if you don't know, use it to find somebody that knows that's willing to help you organize the community. Let us prioritize our development, right? Because or else the only message that the people will have is that message that destroys solidarity. That is in the mainstream. Is that message that allows the
All right, guys. Due to the repeated network problem, I'm just going to bring this broadcast to an end now. We'll definitely do this better some other day. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, guys, for your time and for taking time out to really do this with me. I'm very, very grateful, and of course, yeah, I have to say I'm very, very grateful, and of course, I want to say thank you all very much. Yeah, sorry, I'm doing this from some stuff I'm not really be. Sorry. So I want to say to thank you very much for this time, and this is where I want to bring it all to an end. And, yeah. So due to the network, guys, very sorry. I'm ending the broadcast now. Thank you very much.